It's member-supported Hawaii Public Radio, all things considered. Dave Lawrence here in our HPR Atherton Performing Arts Studio. So grateful that you could join us because we've got a very special guest who's in the studio with us. And through tonight at the Blue Note, 6:30 and 9, Stephen Cat Core, Third World, our guest on the phone not long ago, and knowing that this is a very unusual, very special reggae band where they have the cello as part of their presentation, I was like, hey, maybe you'll come by the studio and we'll do a little thing together. And believe it or not, he took me up on the offer. I'm so grateful. Thank you for joining us.
It's my pleasure to be here.
You were telling me, I guess it was likely after the Try Jah Love album in the early 80s that you first came to the Aloha State, which, as we were talking about, bears a special significance for reggae artists. What is the earliest memory you've got of coming to Hawaii?
Personally, I think my earliest memory of Hawaii would have been seeing some old Elvis Presley films. And those old, images of Hawaii were always so romantic, so special, captivating in a way, especially because of the fact that coming from Jamaica, where we have an island style too, but I wouldn't say we're as brightly colored as Hawaii, bright color flower shirts, but we have very similar things that we do. Seaside stuff, beach stuff, river stuff, mountain stuff, having fun in waterfalls. These are all things that are just as indigenous to Hawaii as to Jamaica. So I would have seen a lot of stuff that would have reminded me. And when I got here first, the climate seemed very much like home. The people were very friendly. As I said, they were more brightly colored, right? And the atmosphere was very island, and I realized that we do share something very much in common.
Power of reggae in the islands is big. Was it that strong then, or do you remember?
It's been a growing
phenomenon.
Growing thing, yeah. When you look at it now, and you have so many Hawaiian reggae groups, and I can't go anywhere in Hawaii without hearing reggae. Every restaurant, where it's some kind of reggae, whether it is traditional reggae like the good old Third World or Dennis Brown or Gregory.
Or local acts.
Or it's Hawaiian music or Samoan reggae. Let me put it that way, an overall thing,
You've seen not only these changes in Hawaii, but when you came, the band that you are surrounded by is changed and evolved through the years. In fact, the last time that we were physically in the same place, I had just spoken to Bunny Ruggs Clark. You and I last ran into each other. It was several years ago. And now you're back. It's an evolution in the band. You've been keeping this alive, and it's through the work of other people. As you said, it's not you on the marquee. You share it with the band.
Right. Through the years, we've had to deal with not only two members leaving the band, but then we had a tragic loss of a keyboard player who died, who got shot near to the Bob Marley statue by the stadium in Kingston, and then had another member who went on his own. We had one band together that stayed together for a good length of time, and then, well, of course, Ruggs died. So since AJ has been with us, who I introduced to you a while ago, we have had, I'd say, a far more settled band. But even before AJ was there, we had Norris and we had Maurice, who were there up until the time when Ruggs passed. So we have been able to maintain Third World's overall standard, which is what I was thinking about this morning.
And part of that, your latest music, when you talk about the current version of the band, a guy who's had a huge part of your life was Bob Marley. You speak so reverently about him. He had one of his boys.
You like my shirt?
I love your shirt. I think it's great. I was watching you walking around taking pictures around the studio with it earlier at the station. And Damian producing with you now. We didn't really talk a lot about it. Dial back to when Damian first came into your life, because it must be a kind of one of those things you're like, I can't believe now this guy's in the producer seat.
Yeah, well, I mean, yes, it has that side to it, but it's also a thing whereby Damian showed from very early as a kid where he was going to be ending up.
You could see it in him.
Yeah, and you could tell that he wasn't going to be an easy customer.
But how old was he when you were?
Damian first showed them kind of stage presence for about 9 or 10 years old, and he was never afraid of the stage. When he came on stage, he was in charge. Very much like his little son Elijah right now, who is a trip. But yeah, watching Damian come up and through school and all of that, and wouldn't say either him or my son were tremendously academic, but they always had a lot of personality and a lot of natural smartness, which of course turned into being brilliant. They were so naturally smart, and Damian right now, once he got to about 14, 15, he started to realize exactly where he wanted to go with his life. And he took it to a very, very high level.
What made you get him on board to do the stuff?
It was really a mutual thing. We had gone into the studio with him to do a version of 96 Degrees in the Shade, which we did. the idea was, could we do another one, or where would we consider going from here? And he said what he'd really like to do is to do a whole album. That's how the whole thing really started, but it's been a few years. Well, we've been working on it.
Right,
But,
that's what I was going to say.
yeah, but truthfully, I mean, I have to really say that the kind of energy that we have been able to achieve in terms of what we have on the tracks right now, it's been more than worth it.
Where do you record with him?
At his studio down in Pinecrest in Miami.
And the other cats, man, he has a lot of children, huh? Have you gotten close to any of the other Marley children?
Steve and I are really good friends too. Steve and Damian are probably the two tightest. Ziggy lives a little far away, so he's not with them as much.
Ziggy sat right in this where you're sitting playing for us in the studio, telling the stories, and when the thing with you and everyone who doesn't know your history may not realize it. And I don't know all of your history, but the fact that you have one of Bob's kids working on your latest music, and then you flash back all the way to the beginning practically, and you were telling me how at an early age you formed the Alley Cats, and then you would end up in Inner Circle and then Third World. But Bob, throughout this time, you played a crucial role in sometimes backing him and getting up close to him and being in a way that a lot of people may not realize.
When I went into Inner Circle, then
that's when it started.
That's when I really was with the big boys, you know. I mean, no pun intended here, but,
Right.
but that's when I got to be really with the big class of music in terms of what was happening. Alley Cats was a corner band, you know. Not that we weren't talented set of guys, we were, but we just got a few little gigs at a couple dances, and we played somebody's house, you know, in a backyard.
Sure.
And that kind of thing, you know.
It was just your earliest thing, though. That
Yeah.
was your first band.
That's
and that's where
right.
your nickname came from.
Exactly.
Because you were a fat cat, you said.
Fat Cat, yeah. and then when I went into Inner Circle, the cat got even fatter, so it was even worse.
And that's when Bob entered your life at that point.
Yeah, well, I would have heard about Bob Marley before I actually experienced playing or seeing him. It wasn't like somebody came and said, hey, this next guy coming on is Bob Marley. I'd heard about him and heard his music. I'd heard him on record, you know, little 45s.
But not seen him actually.
Older brothers would bring them home.
They'd be buying those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember we had one little thing in the living room like this, and it had the little yellow thing in the middle, and you put the 45 over it, and you lift the needle up and play back. So, being a fanatic, I was lifting that needle the whole day playing back. So, my first time backing him was at the State Theatre in Kingston. That's the first time I remember backing him. And it was a festival show. But he did not have sung in the festival contest. What he was a guest artist. So the festival contest had all the guys who were that year in the actual contest, and then you'd have one featured act that would come on that was not in. They were the guest act, and the Wailers were that act. That would have been the first time. But we never rehearsed any songs.
72, 73, right in there.
Maybe 70.
This is 70 you're talking
Yeah.
about. Wow.
Yeah, because
Wow.
73 would have been Third World.
Right.
Yeah, so I would say maybe a little bit before 71.
Incredible. I mean, this is a really early period for Bob, way before the rest of the world really would know anything.
That's true. By 72, 73, they knew about him doing it, because Catch a Fire would have come out around that time, because that would have been when I was about to leave high school. And I left high school in 74, so...
You left high school in 74.
Yeah.
The year that railroad track.
Yeah. You know, I went to England with Third World the following year, 75, and then all that stuff started happening with Chris Blackwell and, you know, getting signed to Island and being able to open up for Bob Marley. All that stuff happened right there in that period there. You know, the first album came out with Satama Sagana and Sun Won't Shine and those songs. I've Got to Get Along, those great tunes. And by 77, 96 Degrees in the Shade was about to be released. So things kind of happened quickly then in that period. We went from virtually being unknown to having a record that was doing reasonably well in the whole reggae market, you know. We were doing numbers out in California. We were selling records out in California. That's why Blackwell took us and put us out there and said, go to California and play. Live out there and just go into the clubs and play and stuff.
Because you had already had a following was starting, and he wanted to grow it, basically.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
It's Stephen Catcore, All Things Considered, Third World, live in our Atherton Performing Arts studio through tonight at the Blue Note. And that's the sound of Stephen playing his cello. He brought it along, and he's going to play a song for us coming up here on All Things Considered. Stay tuned. It's HPR. All Things Considered, Dave Lawrence here in our HPR Atherton Performing Arts studio. Stephen Catcore from Third World through tonight at the Blue Note. I don't know so much how the cello factored into the earlier years. Did you always break it out and make it part of the...
No, I really didn't. I broke it out at the Lyceum when we opened for Bob Marley. For that tour of England, I played the cello on all those gigs. But I put it down for a while because it was frustrating because I was carrying the big one,
right.
You know. It was very hard to carry it and the electronics weren't that good and I was playing with a very loud band, getting a lot of feedback or the cello couldn't be heard and stuff. I just kind of lost interest for a little bit there, you know.
What made you want to bring it back?
We did a symphonic thing, Crystal Palace football ground in England. It was so successful. BBC played it straight for 6 months. Every Saturday night you could see Cat on TV doing that thing. And we just said, boy, we have to make this thing
part of the show.
Yeah.
It's a good bit.
And it never changed from there. For me, really, I don't consider myself a full-time cellist, but I consider myself that's done something for cello because I've certainly brought a lot of people to like this instrument.
An awareness
who
for
would
it.
never have really checked for it before.
Right.
Yeah, so I don't say that I'm ready to solve the Dvorak concerto in G minor, but
and you were
I'm still okay.
I think in the phone interview you told me 7 you started with the cello. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's accurate. What really would have been my first real thing is that my godmother bought a cello from England for me because I was showing interest in wanting
music.
to learn the cello and they didn't have the size cello. I was all about this. So.
And how were you showing interest in a cello?
It was my mom playing the music at night.
Okay.
Before I went to bed, I listened to Casals all the time. And that was the one I liked. And she said, okay, let's try this one. My godmother bringing that cello was a key to the whole thing because
incredible, right?
The big ones, I couldn't play them. The music teacher said, there's no use trying to teach him on that because he can't handle it. But she found a quarter-size cello. Played that for years.
What were you playing?
Played the Swan, Sanson. I played Bach. Some Mozart too.
Well, you do have it here. So, Stephen Catcore, Third World. What is it that you want to grace us with?
Well, I was thinking that, like how I have on the Marley on here, I just play like a
Bob.
You know, yeah.
Is that what you...
One of my favorites is "Fly Away Home," an adaptation by Bob of an old Rastafarian tune. I always picture that Bob flew away home to Zion.
So it goes, you're saying, visually with the
yeah. So,
the message.
You know, I mean, it's like, said I hear the words of the Rastaman say,
yeah.
Babylon, you throne gone on, you know, so.
Yeah.
Just trying to put a spin on it, you know.
It's mesmerizing. You're bringing the reggae, but bringing it on to the cello. They are through tonight at the Blue Note, 6:30 and 9. The leader of Third World join us, Stephen Cat Core, in our HPR Atherton Performing Arts Studio on All Things Considered.
Good, and I hear it's a big show. So
you have fun today?
Yeah, man, I had a lot of fun, and I hope you guys will pass by later on and come and check us out.
For sure. Thank you, my brother. I appreciate it.
God bless.